Here's everything you need to know about Sergio Leone in about 5 minutes. Sergio Leone was an Italian filmmaker who's primarily known for his deconstruction of genres of film, primarily the Western. Leone's movies were all genre films and were known for their spectacle, pacing, nuanced characters, and layered themes. He got his start working on various films such as Bicycle Thieves and the sword and sandals epic Ben-Hur. He eventually became an assistant director, and while working on The Last Days of Pompeii, the director got sick, and Leone was asked to help finish the film. After proving his skill, he made his directorial debut on another sword and sandals epic, The Colossus of Rhodes. From the beginning of his career, we can see Leone's love of spectacle. Leone adores large, sweeping shots that pan over a landscape. He wants you to witness worlds that swallow his protagonist's whole. If he blows something up, you're forced to stare slack-jawed as massive pieces of timber fly, nearly crashing into our characters' heads. But why care so much about spectacle? In Leone's words, he believed that cinema, through spectacle, tells the story of many actual problems in life. You can go to a Leone movie and enjoy it for its entertainment value, but if you want to dig deeper and see what he may be saying behind that spectacle, you can. Leone took this to heart with the 7 films he would direct, by creating visually spectacular movies that forced audiences to contemplate human nature, warts and all. We can see him doing this not long after he made The Colossus of Rhodes, when he took another trip to the past and began what would be later called the Man with No Name trilogy, with a fistful of dollars. Leone took the time to ponder what he included and excluded from his audience's eye. In execution, this could mean having a frame be entirely a character's face, or even just their eyes. Leone was willing to hold onto something like a character's face or an empty landscape with nothing engaging us but one of Ennio Morricone's incredible soundtracks. Leone uses this to ramp up tension, but also gives viewers plenty of time to mull over a character's motivations and the questions the films were asking. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the last film in the trilogy, and easily the most widely recognized film in the spaghetti western genre, a name that comes from the films being filmed in Italy and helmed by an Italian-Spanish crew and cast. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly tells the story of 3 men who each possess questionable morals and search for a treasure that may or may not exist. The violent trek they take is visceral and highlights their own morality or lack of it. The film succeeds by not just being a well-made film, but one in contrast to its predecessors. The unique settings and use of local Italian actors made each feel alien, and in complete contrast to the popular Hollywood Western. The Hollywood Western was one of honorable men, oftentimes played by someone like John Wayne, in white hats, defending their towns from the black hat donning human filth who dare to try to corrupt or oppress the townspeople. Ironically, the spaghetti Western is in search of truth. The men and women who inhabited the West lived hard lives and were forced to do things they'd rather forget. Despite the brutal circumstances, heroes like cacti emerged from the harsh landscape and refused to yield. People saw that the world would laugh in their faces, but they'd laugh harder. Leone knew that when we see ordinary people facing insurmountable circumstances and fighting despite the odds, we see ourselves in them. Our world is unforgiving, and while evil may win initially, it'll regret what it has unleashed. Leone's Westerns argue that a far more dangerous individual is a person working to do good and is ruthless in their pursuit of it. After finishing his Man with No Name trilogy, Leone was offered the job of directing The Godfather, but turned it down as he was interested in adapting the book The Hoods into his own gangster film. This film would eventually materialize as the last film in his Once Upon a Time trilogy, Once Upon a Time in America. Leone's last 3 feature films he directed were later packaged together as a trilogy in the same way that the Man with No Name trilogy was, beginning with Once Upon a Time in the West, then Duck You Sucker, and finally Once Upon a Time in America. But these films bear no similarity amongst each other, other than the fact that you could argue that each one is interested in deconstruction in some form. Once Upon a Time in the West uses the iconography of classic westerns, but twists them to have new, oftentimes darker meanings. Duck You Sucker shows the brutal and violent reality of what a revolution actually looks like. And Once Upon a Time in America tears down the romantic notions of the American gangster showing them in all their ugliness. Once Upon a Time in the West is considered by most to be one of the greatest westerns ever to be put to film, and the same can be said about Once Upon a Time in America for the gangster genre. Unfortunately, both of these films were edited down by their respective studios for commercial release, something that deeply upset Leone. Since then, the full versions have been released, restoring Leone's original vision. Only a few years after filming Once Upon a Time in America, Leone passed away, making it his final film. Despite only directing 7 feature films, Leone remains an inspiration to many filmmakers. If you watch any of his films, you will gain a greater understanding of shot composition, pacing, and style. Leone never talks down to his audience and always keeps them entertained while he tackles controversial subjects and characters. If you want to check out Leone's work, I'd recommend starting with the Man with No Name trilogy, specifically The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and moving on to his Once Upon a Time trilogy afterwards. I would finish with Once Upon a Time in the West, as it's probably the best bookend of his career. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos just like this coming very, very soon.